Hi everyone, this is Julianne Victoria of Through the Peacock's Eyes. Welcome to my channel. So happy Halloween, Samhain, El Dia de los Muertos, All Saints Day, All Souls Day for everyone out there. I thought I'd pop on and do a special reading, sort of, I guess I'll call it guidance from our ancestors for all of us, a general one. Now, ancestors, we usually think of like grandparents, great grandparents, and beyond. Our parents are also our ancestors. There's also ancestors of our own cultures, of our traditions. Those can be people that are looked up to or sort of heroes in our particular cultures that we come from. But there's also ancestors of place and of the land. And I don't hear that talked about much. Mary Grace Farron mentioned it on her channel, and that reminded me maybe I should mention that somewhere in some video. And personally, like I was born in San Francisco, California, and though I had on my mother's side a few generations of ancestors there, I also feel connection to the earth, to the land, and I think there's also past life energy there. So there's a strong connection to the earth. Like I say, that place is in my blood, not just because of family and familial ancestors living there, but because of the people of the place, the Native Americans of the land. So when you think of ancestors, you can generalize it and think of ancestors as all those who came before us. And then you can break it down more specifically for you, the individual, the place, the land, your family, your culture, your traditions. Okay, so for this reading, I'm going to pull 3 cards from the Ancestral Path Tarot. And then I will pull 1 card from the Weaver's Oracle. And this will sort of be like grandmother's message, right? Which as you listen to it, it may connect you to your actual grandmother or a grandmother, which could be like great grandmother, great great grandmother, or your female, your maternal or father's maternal lineage. But it could be the energy of the archetype of grandmother as well. Okay, so let's do 3 cards from the Ancestral Path Tarot. These are huge cards, so I have pre-shuffled them just so I wouldn't spill them all over the desk while I'm on screen. But let's try to do a riffle shuffle here. All right. All right, so 3 cards, guidance for us from the ancestors. Okay. Wow, we have 2 sevens, which is a number of wisdom and insight. And what's jumping out with me with that, and I'll show the cards in a minute, is that we all have within us the wisdom, the capability to connect to our ancestors. Whether, again, that's familial, traditional, cultural, land, the archetypal energy of that, or all of that, we have that wisdom within ourselves. We have the insight. And I want to say most of us, maybe all of us, are getting messages from, I'll say it, the ancestors. We just have to listen. And I don't think that's meaning we hear actual things, though that may play out, but we just have to listen for the signs that we see. Okay. So the first card here is the 7 of Swords. Show that for you guys. So it has sort of that typical image of like the excuse me, the thief, the person walking off with things. But what I'm getting here is that we may be trying to gather up a whole bunch of tools, a whole bunch of things to connect to our ancestors, whatever the ancestors are for you, or whomever you're trying to connect to. We may be trying to gather up, the right candle and the right this and the right that and the perfect altar and the perfect this. And this is taking me to my recent Magic and Spirituality in Everyday Life video where I show my most powerful magical spiritual tools. So I'll link that on screen for you to check out. It's like a minute and a half long. You don't need a whole lot of stuff. And if you're wondering what this is, If you don't know, I have a kitten and I'm covered in scratches, so just ignore those. We may think we need to gather a whole bunch of stuff. And like, I got it. I feel like this grasping energy. This is my grasping sign. I got to get this. I got to get that. And I got to get this. And then I'll hear the messages from my grandfather or my grandmother or whomever. Then I'll be able to connect to the people of the land. But we don't need to grasp. And the grasping energy is how I'm sort of feeling the sort of traditional theft energy of this card. I'm not feeling theft. It's really like, this attachment. I got to get this. When really, we can look back on the side there. It's much simpler than that. And I think that's really we just need to allow ourselves to be open to hearing the signs that we see. And I know I'm mixing senses, because that's how I perceive things. Like I'll say, I hear a sign that I see or something like that, or I see something that I feel. And that's kind of how it comes through sometimes. And that can make it a little confusing. But we don't need to grasp and cling and find just the right things and tools. And if I buy this and I get that and I collect this and I make the perfect little ancestral altar or mantelpiece. The mantle, the hearth, is a traditional place in several cultures. I don't know every culture, but to honor the ancestors. That this need to like just get it just right, and then I'll hear them or connect to them, or they'll come to me in dreams. Simplify it, and instead focusing on understanding how you, the individual, pick up and perceive their communication, their guidance, their insight, their wisdom. The two number sevens here. Now, the next card we have here is the King of Staves, or this would be the King of Wands. And this is, so if you watch my videos and my readings, I often call this the lion ready to pounce, and that's very much how this card feels. Sit back. Don't pounce, right? Don't grasp, don't cling. Sit back, relax, and observe. There's no need to pounce on connecting to ancestors. Well, it's really interesting that this reading concerning the ancestors is their guidance of how to actually connect to them or connect to them better. Yeah. Sit back, relax, listen. It's kind of like when you're seeking something so hard, you miss it. That's the kind of energy here. And then our third card, the Seven of Staves, or the Seven of Wands. Wow. Don't try to do it. Do your spiritual practice. Do your connection to ancestors. Even your sitting back and listening. There's no need to do it like anybody or everybody else. Do your own thing, and you will see. Okay. All right, so that is the tarot reading. And now, again, let's pull one card from the Weaver's Oracle. Again, large cards, even larger than the Ancestral Path Tarot. So I have done a lot of pre-shuffling, which I always do anyway. And this is specifically guidance for some of you, it may feel like your grandmother or great-grandmother, or even mother. For others, it will feel like the archetypal grandmother energy, or the wise woman, the crone within you, no matter what your age or gender. Okay. Oh. So we have Snow, weathered woman of the skin mask. Let's see, she'll focus this way. I'll let you look at that image there. Let me block me. Okay, so I'm going to read from the guidebook because there's a whole story. I won't read the whole thing because it's kind of long. So number 27. And this is where when I use this deck for my ancestors and spirit guides readings, what I always say, which is significant, as you listen, what word, what phrase, or maybe what whole story or aspect of the story jumps out at you. And for some, it may just be a story. For some, the word snow may be very significant, or the skin mask. So it's 2 pages. I'm just going to read the first page, which is her yarn, because this is the Weaver's Oracle. And this is the main story. So, Snow, weathered woman of the skin mask, she protects the new dance of the land. So, for many, this is speaking to the grandmothers of the land spirits, land ancestors, which again, it can be where you were born, where you live, or even it can connect cultural and traditionally to where your familial ancestors are from, so homeland. Okay. At midwinter, when the night was wrapped in snow, the land was soft. The pilgrims stood where shadows were pinned by the moon to frozen pines, folded into the silence of that meeting place. The footprints had been following the footprints she had been following were laid in thick red across the white. They were still warm, for the old woman of the year had come by that way, hobbling along the dark edge of the forest, stumbling barefoot and marking her painful progress with the blood spilling from her raw, cracked feet. The old woman had journeyed vast distances, tracing the long loop of slow-turning seasons, traveling out of the past until there was no more past for her to walk. Just beyond the forest boundary, the old woman was now lying dead upon the snow. The pilgrim stepped out from the tree line. Strings of berries, as brilliant as ruby beads of blood on snow, were looped at her waist, and a blade hung there, as pale and wise and pure as bone, bound tightly to its holly shaft. She was also bound, held always and forever to the trail of that old woman. Together and apart, through long epochs and eras they had walked, circling each other, returning over and over again to this deep fold in the cloth of time, where the winter land was so forgiving and always waiting to receive them. As she arrived each year, the pilgrim would rediscover and enter again that crease in time as if it was new. Beside the cold pine shadows, she would enter her older self once more and witness her dying on the snow. Now the pilgrim knelt beside the cold body to make her offerings of gratitude and respect. Then her bright blade worked at the edges of the old woman's face. She gently slid the knife beneath the skin. She stroked her blade into the dry flesh and sliced through with care until she had peeled back that face. She lifted the fragile layer up, smoothing it out, then tying it around her own eyes and mouth. Now she was wearing a delicate mask of skin. Of course, the ancient face of the old woman fitted her well, and when she peered through it, the fresh eyes of the emergent year were gazing once again through those of the decayed season. That was the pilgrim's moment of renewal and resurrection, when the old year finally transformed into the new. The circle of her journey was now complete, and yet the mystery of midwinter continued to unravel across the snow. She left the pine green shadows behind and walked onward, following the shortening nights into the future. The silent snow and the forgiving land gathered up the words that she whispered through the ancient skin face. I am dancing death, I am dancing life, I am dancing all that returns. Wow, so I kind of had goosebumps on my arms that whole time. So take from that, re-listen to it if you need to, what resonates with you. But I do find it so interesting that as we're at this time of year, at least in the northern hemisphere, as we enter into the darkest time of year, we're entering sort of into that cycle of dying. And for me, a message is what is now birthing and gaining from the wisdom of what has been and what has died through the eyes, through that mask of the old woman with a fresh perspective. Interesting. So, a lot of message of wisdom, a lot of wisdom here. Okay, so that is just a little extra reading thrown in for Halloween, Samhain, El Dia de los Muertos, and whatever other celebrations are celebrated in your family and your culture this time of year. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for watching. Share this with someone whom you think it might help, and I'll see you back here soon.